The case I'm going to tell you about today took place in Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaysia. To the southeast of Kuala Lumpur lies an area known as Bangsar. Within this area is an upscale residential neighborhood called Tunku Hill. It's a place filled with lush green trees and a serene environment, which has made it a home for the elite. However, even in such a perfect location, a horrifying dismemberment case occurred that shocked all of Malaysia. The case began on Wednesday, July 7, 1993. That day, a city worker was cutting grass along the roadside on Tunku Hill, as he regularly did. This is an upscale residential area, quiet and with little traffic or foot traffic. As the worker bent down to cut the grass, he accidentally came across 2 black trash bags lying in the grass. Initially, he thought it was just litter left by someone passing by, but when he picked them up, he noticed they were quite heavy. Out of curiosity, he opened one of the bags and was shocked to see a severed human arm inside. Terrified, he dropped the bag and ran from the scene. After running quite a distance, he still couldn't calm down. Panting heavily, he frantically called the police. He was so distressed that he could only stammer out, "I saw a dead body," and urgently requested the police to come to the scene. When the police arrived, they were also shocked to find the bloody body parts in the black trash bags. They immediately realized this was an extremely brutal murder and dismemberment case. The police quickly cordoned off the area and conducted a thorough search of the surrounding areas. As a result, they found several more black trash bags in a nearby ditch and in the grass. Inside, they found parts of thighs, calves, a torso. The body parts had been left there for some time, and maggots were already crawling on them. However, thanks to the forensic pathologist's assessment, they determined that the victim was a woman about 30 years old. On the day the dismembered body parts were discovered, the police could not find the victim's head, making it very difficult to identify her. 3 days later, on July 11, 1993, the police returned to the scene and conducted a more thorough investigation. They eventually found 2 additional black bags some distance away. Inside were the remaining body parts and the victim's head. Forensic experts pieced together a total of 11 body parts and confirmed that they all belonged to the same person. The victim's head was swollen, the face severely decomposed, the facial features distorted, with the eyes nearly unrecognizable and the mouth agape as if frozen in a scream, creating a horrifying sight. Due to the severe damage, the victim's identity could not be determined from the face. At a dead end, the police had no choice but to turn to the media and seek help from the public. They released details about the victim's appearance, noting features such as 6 dental prostheses, well-manicured nails and eyebrows, and neatly trimmed pubic hair. In a bold move to quickly identify the victim, the police published a clear, unedited photo of the partially decomposed head in the newspaper. This image became one of the most horrifying and grotesque photos ever published in Malaysian media, leaving many viewers with an unforgettable psychological trauma. At that time, forensic science was not as advanced as it is today. The police were unable to reconstruct the victim's face from the severely damaged head. To expedite the identification process, they took another unexpected step. The police approached a street artist at the Central Art Center, hoping he could sketch the victim's appearance based on the decomposed head. They chose this particular artist because he had previously assisted the police in solving a murder case involving a shaman through his painting. The artist's name was Amiruddin. After learning of the police's intentions, he agreed to help them find the real killer unconditionally. Amiruddin first studied the photograph of the victim's head, then accompanied the police to the morgue to observe the head firsthand. He even closed his eyes and used his hands to touch the head, relying on his sense of touch to feel the subtle contours of the victim's facial features. Although Amiruddin did not have formal training in art or attend an art school, his drawing skills were exceptionally advanced. Faced with an unrecognizable head, Amiruddin relied on his portrait drawing experience and vivid imagination to create 3 facial sketches of the victim. After 4 hours of focused work, he shared his thoughts, saying, "A person's hairstyle and makeup can significantly impact their appearance. While I couldn't perfectly capture the victim's appearance from a decomposed head, because makeup and hairstyling can drastically change a girl's looks, I believe that those who knew the victim will be able to recognize her from the simplest sketch. In an interview, Amiruddin mentioned, "After drawing the 3 portraits of the victim, I experienced a haunting feeling from staring at that horrifying head photo during the drawing process. Since then, I've stopped eating meat and switched to a vegan diet. But as an artist, I shouldn't just think about commercial work. I'm glad that I could contribute to society through my art." The police then quickly released the 3 portraits Amiruddin created from his imagination, which garnered widespread public attention. The portraits were simple, without excessive detail, yet they clearly captured the overall contours of the face. A few days later, the police received an important phone call that became a key turning point in the investigation. The caller was a landlord from the Bangsar area who said, "A female tenant of mine has been missing for a few days, and I haven't been able to contact her. I saw the victim's portrait in the newspaper and felt it resembled my tenant, so I decided to call the police." After receiving this lead, the police immediately went to the house in the Bangsar area to investigate. When they arrived, they found the door securely locked. Despite knocking loudly, there was no response. With the landlord's permission, the police decided to break into the house. Inside, they found no trace of anyone, but they did discover a photo of a female performer and a piece of paper with an address in Kota Baru, Kelantan. Using the information on the paper after several calls, the police finally managed to contact the sister of the tenant. The tenant's sister worked as a cashier at a karaoke bar in Petaling Jaya. The following day, she accompanied the police to the morgue to identify the body. This was an incredibly distressing scene for any ordinary person. The tenant's sister was ill that day. At the morgue, she couldn't stop coughing and vomiting. However, after taking medication and resting, she reluctantly completed the identification process. After carefully observing, she confirmed that the victim was indeed her younger sister. She stated that her primary basis for identification was the neatly trimmed pubic hair of the victim. Her sister was a performer who often wore revealing outfits and performed suggestive dances. To maintain her appearance and avoid embarrassing situations, her sister had a habit of trimming her pubic hair. At that time, DNA technology in Malaysia was not well developed. The police took a blood sample from the victim's sister and sent it to Singapore for testing. The victim's identity was confirmed on July 21, 1993. The woman was named Lily Chua, 30 years old, with the stage name A Little Red. She was a well-known performer at a popular local karaoke bar. Lily Chua was originally from Kota Baru, Kelantan, and had been working in Kuala Lumpur for over 15 years. She was the youngest of 5 siblings, and the sister who identified the body was her closest relative. 7 years earlier, Lily Chua had married and had 2 sons. However, as the relationship between her and her husband deteriorated, their marriage lasted only 2 years before ending abruptly. Before that, Lily Chua worked as a seamstress in a garment factory that made costumes for karaoke bar dancers. During that time, she became drawn to the lively and glamorous entertainment lifestyle and was later introduced to a job at a karaoke bar. To provide a better life for her children, Lily Chua sent her 2 sons to a care center at an orphanage. She worked diligently and passionately to earn money. After the tragic incident, her 2 sons in the orphanage were still unaware that their mother had been brutally murdered. According to Lily Chua's sister, "A month before the incident, my sister and I, along with some friends, partnered to open a new karaoke bar in Parade Garden, Petaling Jaya. My sister had finally realized her dream of becoming a business owner after years of hard work. Everything was going well, but then this tragic and ironic disaster struck. How could anyone be so cruel to a single mother?" The police continued their investigation and reached out to Lily Chua's ex-husband to gather information about her. However, her ex-husband claimed that he hadn't been in contact with his ex-wife for years and had no motive to commit any crime. The police then broadened their investigation into Lily Chua's social circle and uncovered an important lead. It turned out that while she was alive, Lily Chua had been involved in an affair with a married man, and this illicit relationship had been ongoing for a long time. The married man's name was Michael, 33 years old. He had studied theology in Singapore and briefly worked as a missionary. He was currently a piano teacher. Michael had an intellectual, gentle, and refined appearance, often wearing glasses. He and Lily Chua had met through a teacher-student relationship, as he had once taught her vocal music. Over time, their relationship evolved into a romantic affair. Since Lily Chua was a star at the karaoke bar, Michael's father vehemently opposed their relationship. Despite Michael eventually marrying another woman, he continued his affair with Lily Chua. Ultimately, Michael decided to maintain his family relationship with his current wife and wanted to end his illicit affair with Lily Chua. However, Lily Chua had invested a great deal of emotional energy and money into the relationship. She refused to accept the breakup easily, and their love triangle became increasingly entangled with no way out. When Michael's wife found out about the affair, she was furious and confronted Lily Chua. But Lily Chua was also fierce and sharp-witted. She wasn't about to let Michael's wife insult her without a fight. Lily had a fiery temper. She pointed her finger in her rival's face, hurling insults and even threatening to cut her into 100 pieces. To prevent Lily from acting on her threats, Michael reluctantly continued the relationship, aiming to keep her mentally stable. However, deep down, Michael was constantly thinking of a way to end the unstable relationship once and for all. Upon learning of the situation, the police believed that Michael had a motive for the crime and immediately brought him in for questioning. During the interrogation, Michael admitted to having an affair with Lily Chua. The police then placed a photograph of Lily Chua's head in front of Michael for identification. He glanced at it briefly and stated, "I don't recognize the person in the photo." Michael claimed, "I haven't seen her in over half a month." He also handed the police a note that Lily Chua had given him earlier. The note read, "I'll be going to Penang for 10 days, and I'll contact you when I return." The sharp-eyed officer immediately noticed something unusual about the note. Michael didn't know Chinese, and there was no reason for Lily Chua to give him a note written entirely in Chinese. After several rounds of questioning, Michael couldn't handle the pressure, and the police exposed several inconsistencies in his story. Finally, he was officially arrested by the police on suspicion of murder. At this time, both Michael's wife and mother were also detained awaiting trial. His wife was 2 months pregnant at the time, but they were later released due to a lack of evidence. On December 13, 1993, 5 months after Michael's arrest, the case was brought to trial at the Kuala Lumpur Sessions Court No. 5. Michael was charged with murder under Section 302 of the Malaysian Penal Code. The case drew widespread public attention after being reported in the media. For a time, the Lily Chua case became a common topic of conversation after dinner. People were shocked by the brutal nature of Michael's crime and were eager to know what punishment he would face. Before the trial began, many media reporters and members of the public gathered outside the courthouse, waiting for Michael to appear. Around 2 p.m. that day, he was escorted to the courthouse. As soon as he stepped out of the vehicle, he was surrounded by a crowd. Initially, he appeared calm, but as the trial proceeded, he couldn't hide his inner anxiety and grew increasingly tense. After the prosecutor finished reading the charges, Michael immediately pleaded not guilty in court. The trial lasted 3 days, after which the judge announced a 2-month adjournment for a second preliminary hearing. Michael was denied bail and remained in custody awaiting trial. Despite more than 2 months passing, public interest in the case remained strong. Many were still eager to learn the final outcome of the trial. 2 months later, on February 2, 1994, the second preliminary hearing took place as scheduled. During this process, the case took an astonishing turn that left everyone in disbelief. Perhaps due to insufficient evidence, on February 28, 1994, the prosecution unexpectedly announced the withdrawal of the murder charge against Michael and replaced it with a manslaughter charge. The case was then transferred to the Kuala Lumpur Sessions Court for further proceedings. Anyone convicted of murder under Section 302 of the Penal Code would be sentenced to death. However, if convicted of manslaughter, the maximum penalty was only 25 years in prison. The sudden decision by the prosecution to change the charge caused public confusion and concern. This meant that even if Michael was found guilty, he would escape the death penalty. After the charge was reduced to manslaughter, Michael changed his previous statement and eventually pleaded guilty in court. He firmly stated, "I accidentally killed Lily Chua because I was pushed to the edge." Michael then recounted the events leading up to the crime. He explained that on the night of the incident, "My wife was not at home, but Lily Chua insisted on coming to my apartment. After arriving, she wanted to be intimate with me, but I refused. She became very angry and started yelling. With no other option, I tried to calm her down. Once she had calmed down, she went into the bathroom to take a shower. When she came out, she stood in front of me, completely naked, trying to seduce me. I didn't know how to handle the situation, so I reluctantly went along with her desires, and we had intercourse on the living room sofa. Afterward, I felt that things couldn't continue like this any longer, so I suggested we break up and end our illicit relationship. When Lily Chua heard this, she became extremely furious, lost control, and started hurling insults at me. She even threatened me, demanding that I return the car she had bought for me earlier. During that time, I thought she probably felt like her world was collapsing because she had sacrificed so much for me. She had believed that we could have a bright future together, but all she got in return was my rejection. She felt that I had never valued her status, her profession, and had no intention of marrying her in the future. She thought I only cared about material needs and was maintaining the relationship with her for temporary novelty and personal gain. After she said several more hurtful things, I became extremely angry and wanted to hit her, but thankfully, I managed to restrain myself. I then tried to divert her attention by turning on the TV in the living room, but as soon as I turned around, Lily Chua, out of nowhere, pulled out a knife and attacked me frantically. I was shocked by the sudden attack and quickly tried to run away. Unfortunately, the knife still managed to slash my left finger, causing it to bleed profusely. I didn't expect her to be so crazed, so I began to fight back to take the knife from her. During the struggle, I tried to restrain her arms, and we tussled from the living room to the bedroom. When I found the right moment, I quickly snatched the knife out of her hand. In the ensuing scuffle, I unintentionally caused her death. Before I could react, the knife pierced her chest, and she fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Before she died, she used her last breath to say to me, "How dare you kill me?" At that moment, I could only helplessly watch as she took her last breath and passed away. After the incident, I felt utterly panicked and terrified. I couldn't believe things had escalated to such a terrible extent. My whole body was trembling. I realized I had caused an unforgivable tragedy. I began to think about how to deal with the body, and eventually, I made a bold decision. I dismembered Lily Chua's body into 11 pieces and placed the parts into several black trash bags. At that time, my apartment floor was covered in blood and stains. It took me a great deal of effort to clean everything up. I then carried the trash bags containing the body parts out of the apartment and drove to the secluded Tunku Hill to dispose of them. When I reached a suitable spot, I got out of the car to open the trunk, but a car passed by, causing me to freeze in place. After the car drove away, I discarded 2 of the trash bags in the roadside grass and later returned to the apartment to dispose of a few more bags at a more distant location. Returning to the apartment, I checked Lily Chua's handbag and took out all the documents inside, burned them, and flushed the ashes down the toilet. I then divided her clothes and handbag into several different bags to dispose of them. I kept her ring and necklace in my own bag. Once everything was done, I took a shower and went to sleep. Michael's confession was presented by his defense attorney in court as evidence supporting the manslaughter charge. In his confession, he also stated, "That night was long and distressing because I kept thinking about the life I had taken with my own hands." Michael expressed belated remorse and deep guilt for his actions. But Lily Chua had a strong sense of control and possessiveness over Michael. Even after Michael got married and started a new life, Lily Chua remained stubborn, which indirectly led to the tragedy. Michael further stated, "Lily Chua repeatedly insulted, belittled, and humiliated my family. I couldn't bear her persistent harassment, psychological attacks, and severe threats. so I decided to end the relationship quickly. The prosecutor's decision to change the charge from murder to manslaughter was largely based on the defense's argument that Lily Chua was in an unstable mental state and that the emotional entanglements and physical threats she posed to her client played a role in the incident. However, the prosecutor expressed doubts about Michael's confession. They argued that the methodical way he disposed of the body and erased evidence suggested that Michael harbored deep resentment toward the victim. They contended that his actions that night might not have been the result of a sudden impulse, but rather a premeditated act. Everything known about what happened that night was based solely on Michael's account. The truth might not be exactly as he described, and there is a possibility that he had planned the murder in advance. On March 9, 1994, the Kuala Lumpur Sessions Court sentenced Michael to 15 years in prison for manslaughter, with the sentence starting from the date of his arrest. Michael immediately claimed that the sentence was too harsh. He did not accept the verdict and appealed to the Kuala Lumpur Court of Appeal. On December 3, 1994, the Kuala Lumpur Court of Appeal reduced Michael's original sentence from 15 years to 12 years. Additionally, Michael was ordered to pay 10,000 ringgit, equivalent to about $2,300 USD at the time, to the victim's family, or face an additional year in prison. This compensation was considered a significant amount in 1994. After learning of her husband's crime, Michael's wife divorced him and terminated her pregnancy. She then moved away to start a new life. Years later, some media outlets revisited the upscale apartment where Michael had murdered Lily Chua. There were 3 units on that floor, and Michael's apartment had a simple wooden door covered in dust. For many years, all 3 apartments on that floor remained abandoned, as no one wanted to live there. The atmosphere was filled with an eerie and gloomy vibe. Many residents chose to move out after hearing about the gruesome murder and dismemberment that had taken place there. The scenery at Tunku Hill, where Michael disposed of the body, remained just as beautiful and picturesque as before. In 2000, Michael was released early from prison due to good behavior. He changed his name and moved with his parents to a place where no one knew him. There were rumors that Michael continued his theological studies and became a missionary, following in his father's footsteps. Perhaps he wanted to spend the rest of his life atoning for the crime he had committed. As of now, it has been 24 years since Michael returned to society. No one knows his current name or whereabouts. Some people claim to have recognized Michael in a church, but he firmly denied his identity and quietly turned away. In real life, there are many illicit affairs that leave serious consequences, and there are often mistresses who demand recognition. However, few realize that life is about cause and effect. Everyone will eventually have to pay for the wrongs they have committed. Today's video concludes here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Goodbye.